Welcome into the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. Tom Leach, along with Keeneland's Director of Simulcasting, Jim Goodman. Going to jump around to 4 different tracks for our podcast this week, and we'll start at Churchill. It's an ungraded stake, but interesting group that is going post-route in the Roxalana, a sprint. Who did you like in here?
Well, I think Willow Hills appears ready to take a stakes race. 3 for 3 lifetime with an 89 buyer last out in the $62,000 optional claimer. And I like the buyer progression, but it almost scares me a little bit. When you go from 56 to 74 to 89, how much of a step forward can they take? But I'm thinking that probably gonna hold up here, and that 89 buyer just sticks out. Danita's Ruler, the 4-horse, invades from Parks. You never know how Parks horses are going to run at Churchill. It's a step up in class, obviously. But any time a horse has 7 wins and 16 tries, ran, a stakes race, got beat by 3 1/4 in a $75,000 stakes race at 18-1. Milam is a horse that I actually got a tip on in the Grade 3 winning colors last out, and didn't run that well. But lack of early speed has a little bit of a concern for me here. So I'm going with Willow Hills, the 8, with 2-4 with probably all in the trifecta here.
I ended up taking Milam. I was intrigued by Willow Hills and Danita's Ruler, but I kept looking at Milam as like, boy, I think there's just a little bit of a class edge for this one, and has some experience at Churchill, I think a win and a second and a third. And third start off the layoff might be better. I think, if memory serves, I don't have the PPs in front of me, but I think the winning colors you referenced, I think was an off track. So maybe you give Milam an excuse for that. So I'm going to take Milam and maybe get a little bit of a price because of those nice buyer figs for those up-and-comers, and use Milam with the 4 Danita's Ruler, the 8 Willow Hills, and also maybe throw in an exacta with a 7 Tony's Holiday, but keying them all around the 2 Milam. 8th race, the Grade 3 Bed of Roses, fillies and mares 4 and up going 7 furlongs. And Dame Dorothy, real impressive winner on the Derby Day card at Churchill. But with a really good 3-year-old and a really good 4-year-old, I'm going to give a slight edge to the 4-year-old and take La Verdad, 5 for 6 at Belmont. Figs, a little comparable, maybe a tick better than Dame Dorothy. And again, 4-year-old over a 3-year-old. I'll still give the edge to the 4-year-old here in June. And then I'll use La Verdad with Dame Dorothy and an exacta, which would pay nothing. And then I'll use one with Street Story. If you're looking to, sometimes what I like to do is try to find a horse that could split the 2 likely winners, and I think that would be Street Story that could run second maybe to either one of the other 2. But my pick's going to be La Verdad. How about you?
I went with Dame Dorothy, but after I looked at it, I think what's going to happen is if Cornelio Velasquez lets La Verdad get an uncontested lead, I think La Verdad wins. But I think there's a real shot that Cornelio sends room for me, and I think that if they get into a speed duel, I think it sets up very well for Dame Dorothy. Coming out of the Grade 1 Humana Distaff, I just think the setup, if that happens, and there's always a fear when you're looking at 2 speed horses, you're hoping, if you like a closer, that they hook up. If Cornelio takes back on room for me, I think La Verdad is a winner, and I would use La Verdad and Dame Dorothy and pick 3s and pick 4s.
Let's go to Thistledowns for the Ohio Derby for 3-year-olds. It's their 8th race, mile and a 16th, and a field of 8, and I think a real interesting betting race. How did you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, I remember a story after right before the Belmont, and Ron Palucci pulled War Story out of the Belmont, and he's from close to Thistledown. He's an Ohio native, big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and he said, I want to win the Ohio Derby. And I thought he was going to get a pass here, but it came up pretty tough. I think Divining Rod probably will be the favorite, won the Lexington Stakes here. And actually, if you go back and watch the Preakness, man, he was coming in the stretch, and then obviously American Pharoah just put him away. But I thought he was second best that day. He just gave out and got passed for second. But I think Dividing Rod is probably a whole lot tougher competition than Ron wanted with War Story. He did skip the Belmont for this and is pointing for this, so I think he's got a real shot at the 5-horse as well. I like Whiskey Ticket, the 1 for Baffert. And Far Right ran behind American Pharoah in Arkansas, so the 2-horse Far Right. I would use those 4 in multiple race wagers, but I would take Divining Rod the 4 on top with War Story the 5, Whiskey Ticket the 1, and Far Right the 2 below in the trifecta.
I am going to take a flyer on the New York Invader, Tensendur. Just draw a line through the Derby, which was awful. But the previous race, that 100 Buyer Fig in the Wood, I think that's a legitimate number of how Frosted continued to perform and of his performance in the Wood. And this horse was, I think, beaten 3 lengths by him. If he could run back to that, he's a player. And I don't know that Weaver ships out a whole lot. And he's shipping out, bringing a New York rider with him who's given up a full day at Belmont. And just off those angles, and seduced a little bit by the price, I think, that I'll get on Tensendur. Then I'm going to try that one, and thinking he could run well, and I'm going to pick him to win, but basically I'm just going to key him in exactas and hope he can run first or second. Use him with Divining Rod, with Whiskey Ticket, and also with Far Right. I'm going to go against War Story in here, but Tensendur is going to be my pick at a price in the Ohio Derby. Santa Anita has a grade 2 in the 8th race on Saturday. It's the Summertime Oaks, and you've got Stellar Wind, who was one of the favorites in the Kentucky Oaks, making her first start since then. And I would assume she'd go favored here in this race for 3-year-old fillies at a mile and the 16th, but I don't know that she's a standout. How did you see the Summertime Oaks?
I think she's going to be the favorite. I think if people look at the Oaks, the Kentucky Oaks trip she got, I mean, she's stuck on the outside and she's 9 wide, and she actually finished pretty well, but she really didn't have a chance to win from the outside, and I don't think she was going to beat Larry Jones's filly that day anyway. She is 2 for 2 at Santa Anita, so she goes back to her home track. She won the Santa Anita Oaks in April, and she was the favorite in the Kentucky Oaks. So I think Espinoza on her back comes back home to Santa Anita after winning the Triple Crown, and I think Stellar Wind is a fairly solid choice here. Fantastic Style, the 10, looks to be the quickest, but she's stuck on the outside, and she's never been a mile and 16th. So I think she does get the lead possibly, but Stellar Wind ought to be tracking her and can run her down the stretch. Fantastic Style can be compromised for the lead by Conquest Curl Girl, the 7, and Terrace Tango could benefit from a speed duel as well. So I would play it Stellar Wind on top and use those 3 below with probably Terrace Tango, my second choice, thinking that the speed will kind of fall apart.
I ended up going with Sheer Pleasure in here. At the 86 Buyer, that last race on May 23rd was her best, and it was the first time she stretched out to a mile and a 16th. And she won by over 7 lengths, and the horse that she beat was almost 8 lengths ahead of third. And then the trainer, Phil D'Amato's winning at a really high percentage for the year, and especially at this meet. And I saw a quote from him where he said he thought she had the ability to compete in this kind of a race, but she's a Calbred, and the Calbred program was really lucrative, and they decided just to take the easy money and get the Calbred Stakes win, and now going to take a shot here and see if they are good enough. And I think you'll get rewarded for a decent price because you get Stellar Wind and you got Baffert with Fantastic Style. So I'm going to try Sheer Pleasure, use her with Stellar Wind, the 9, the 10 Fantastic Style, and the 6 Terrace Tango. But Sheer Pleasure is the key horse in the exacta. And don't forget, there's the Twitter tourney for Keeneland Select. You can go to the promotions page and find out more about it. There's a race of the week to pick, and then you have to pick a second race, and it's usually a preceding or following race. This time it's the race that precedes the Summertime Oaks, which is the Singletary. I took the 8-horse Madiba in there for a bit of a price, but you pick the 2, and you have a chance to, if you win the contest, to get some free money put in your Keeneland Select account. So go check that out, the Twitter tourney at KeenelandSelect.com. Anything special going on contest-wise for simulcast patrons at Keeneland?
No, this weekend is kind of a break from between Belmont and Saratoga opening up pretty soon, and Del Mar opening up pretty soon. And we are actually going to be talking about the next few weeks relocating the simulcasting facility at Keeneland over to Red Mile, and I just came back from there, and it's looking very promising. I think it's going to be a very nice facility for everyone to be a little more centrally located here in town, and with the instant racing facility opening in September, I think it's going to be a very nice addition to Lexington. And so we've got to remind everybody that starting July 15th, if construction goes well, that we'll be located at the Red Mile. Keeneland simulcasting this weekend. We don't have any contest, but we do have a contest next Saturday, which is closing night at Churchill. So Saturday night, the 27th, is our next contest. $35 a person with a chance to win about $1,500. So make your plans now for the 27th. You can come out to see us at simulcasting this weekend. We're open all weekend, and with some very nice racing, beautiful weather out here. You can sit outside and enjoy the Keeneland air conditioning, the breeze coming out of the west. It's very nice down there today.
Best of luck with your wagers this weekend. For Jim Goodman, I'm Tom Leach. This is the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com.